I'm back for all the juicy spoiler review. The film starts in 3600 BC in Nar Valley. There is an incredibly powerful horsewoman. She is protecting Apocalypse. Now, she seems to be incredibly powerful, able to do the most unbelievable of things and protect Apocalypse from all that falls on him. Her only weakness, a giant boulder. With all those powers and shielding abilities, you'd think she could actually survive a boulder, but apparently not. Giant boulder, just too much. So then it cuts to Ohio in 1983, where Scott Summers is sitting in a classroom blinking in the general direction of a girl because his eyes hurt. The girl's boyfriend, however, does not like the blinking, and he says, "You eyeball my girl?" And Scott just continues to blink in a very in pain kind of a way, which is very obviously not flirting. If that's flirting, he's doing it wrong, guys. He's doing it wrong. Then there's a little bit of a confrontation. The teacher gets annoyed, and then Scott asks, can he go to the bathroom? The teacher says, yes, but why don't you just take yourself to the principal's office while you're at it? The other guy gets no punishment at all, because apparently that wasn't needed, even though it was him that started the fight. So then when Scott goes off to the bathroom, the other guy just gets up and walks out of the classroom, and that's fine. No punishment for him. I mean, yes, the teacher might not have been that aware, she was kind of looking a bit away from him, but still, it just seemed a bit silly. I mean, they could have punished him as well. So then Scott's in the bathroom, and he's rubbing his eyes in the cubicle, and the bully guy comes in and starts shaking the door, and Scott's laser vision starts and blasts the door back, just whacking the guy against a wall. Now this is ridiculous because his power seems to be conveniently variable. Later he goes to Xavier's mansion and he cuts a giant, really old tree in half, and then he blasts a cell door and part of the wall off to get some of the other comrades out. And you think, it seems like they made it a lot less powerful at the start, so that the first act in the movie wouldn't be him slicing a classmate in half. Which I can understand wouldn't have been a great start to the movie, but I really don't like it when they make people's powers really inconsistent, because it just seems a bit, like they really weren't trying that hard, and I don't know, it just seems a bit silly. Unless maybe bathroom doors are made of stronger stuff than cell doors and walls. Then Nightcrawler and Angel are in a cage fight, and for some reason Angel seems to be an undefeated champion, even though Angel has wings. He's not the Hulk, he's not even really particularly well built. He's a pretty slight guy, so I don't really understand why he would be undefeated just because he has wings. I mean, yes, they have little hooks on them, but little hooks does not an undefeated champion make. I don't know, it just seemed a bit silly to me. And Nightcrawler defeats him pretty easily as well, so I don't know, that seemed a bit odd. Also, Raven steps in to save him. Now, he is her son in the comics, however, it's not even really hinted at that she's his mother. I don't know whether they made it so that she would save him because she's his mother, and they're maybe gonna address that later in further movies, but they didn't even hint at it in this movie. So I don't know where that's leading, but it was just an interesting touch. I thought that it was her that saved him. Then we cut to Magneto. Now, Magneto, he is having a great life. He has a wife and daughter. How wonderful, you think. Yeah, that's definitely not going to end well. And yep, predictably, they both get killed. But in the most ridiculous way. It was so stupid. So basically, Magneto saves the life of some guy, and for some reason that guy then tells the police about him, and the police come and kidnap his daughter, which seems like a very strange practice for a policeman to do. He comes into the forest with his wife to try and get his daughter back. He agrees to hand himself over. But for some reason the policemen are still holding their weapons on Magneto even though he's, surrendering. And one guy has a bow completely drawn, even though you should not do that as an archer. And, as he's surrendering, his daughter has the ability to communicate with animals in some form, and some birds come down and are swooping around their heads. They're not even attacking them yet. And the guy just loses his arrow by accident. And what happens? It goes straight through the daughter and the mother. An arrow which doesn't even have a metal tip on it, because obviously Magneto would be able to control it if it did. So that seemed a bit unbelievable. And also the fact that an archer, a skilled archer, would be part of the police force possible, but not particularly likely. And then that he would also be doing terrible archery practice. You never ever ever draw a bow and hold it for ages, because almost as soon as you're holding it, your arm starts to get tired and it throws your aim off. You're always taught, you look for the target, you wait until you're ready, and then you draw, aim, fire. You do not hold it for ages, because what happened in the film can then happen, your aim goes off. It was so silly. Honestly, they could have done anything else. It was just so pathetically predictable. It was literally just convenient for the plot. You know, it wasn't to develop the story in any way, it was just convenient for the plot. Let's get rid of these two characters in one fell swoop. And they did. And it wasn't even believable. Then Magneto just slaughters all of the police officers. He doesn't even look up, he just gets his little necklace and just whew, they're all dead. Every single one of them, even though there's only one of them that actually killed his wife and daughter, and that was an accident, although it was a really stupid accident. But he just kills them all. And then at the end of the film, all is forgiven because he decides not to be a bad guy anymore. So they just forgive him. I'm quite sure that the families of the police officers that he killed wouldn't exactly be happy with that. So I said that I would talk about Quicksilver more in my previous video, and I'm going to now. It was so cool, the scene in the mansion where it's all exploding, and he conveniently comes at the exact right time to save everybody. But it's so brilliant. It was really, really, really well done. I liked the way he scooped up the goldfish into the jug, and the way he saved the dog with the pizza slice in its mouth, and then the dog's just eating the pizza slice at the end. That was hilarious. It was just brilliant comic levity for the film, and it really needed it. The whole film was far too heavy and complicated, but that was just brilliant. I loved it so much, and he has a really quirky, really fun style to him. I like the way he listens to music actually when he's doing his speedy thing. It's just really cool, and I loved it. The only thing that I wasn't very keen on with Quicksilver was that he is Magneto's son. But for some reason, he goes to Magneto toward the end of the film, and Magneto is potentially going to destroy the world along with Apocalypse. He has the chance to perhaps turn Magneto onto the side of good by telling him, you actually do have something to live for, I am your son. And what does he do? He goes to say it, and then changes his mind. He thinks, no, do you know what? I don't know that I'm personally ready to tell Magneto that I'm his son. I don't know that feels quite right. It's not quite the right time for me, personally. And you think, dude, come on, you could be saving the world right now. And he's just like, no, I don't feel it. I just don't feel it's the right time. You're like, what the hell, dude? No, I'm sorry, but that is the point where you say, personal feelings aside, I think perhaps I should tell my father he has something to live for. That made me so angry. I was like, no. So Wolverine, which I mentioned in the previous video, just looked ridiculous. He is Weapon X in this, and they lit out Weapon X, and you think, yeah, this is going to be cool and dramatic. It pans up. He looks so cool, and then the headgear. The headgear looked ridiculous. I know he wears the headgear as Weapon X in the comics, but even that headgear looks far cooler than this thing, which was just a bunch of twisted metal and wires around his head. It just looked silly. It looked silly. I don't know what else to say, like, and then he goes around, kills a few people, and then they open a door and he bounds off into the forest like a little deer, and it was hilarious. I just thought, that was a very strange meeting of Wolverine, not quite how I thought he was going to be portrayed in the film, but you know, there you have it. So, in the original timeline, did Apocalypse ever come out? Did he ever, you know, happen like he does in this film? Because the world's only aware of mutants in the original timeline in the 2000s, but because of Days of Future Past, they get outed in the 70s. So, if he did come and, you know, do his whole destruction thing in the original timeline, then why isn't the world aware of mutants? I mean, he's not exactly being subtle. Now, the reason that I think he must have is because they seem to show that that's the reason Storm has white hair, which she does in the original films, and the reason Charles Xavier has no hair, which he does in the original films. So if Apocalypse didn't happen, why does Storm have white hair, and why is Xavier bald? Is Apocalypse the hairstylist for the X-Men or something? I mean, really? And if he did happen, then how come people aren't aware of mutants? I mean, he wasn't exactly being subtle, so that just seemed a bit of a loophole, and they didn't even really try to address that. I don't know, it just felt a bit odd. The timelines really don't match. The whole time travel thing is very messed up, as it always is when we talk about time travel. But I just kind of felt like they weren't even really trying a lot of the time. They just threw stuff in and were like, yeah, you guys just deal with it. You know, it's X-Men. We can get away with this. And you're kind of like, okay, you could have tried a bit harder to make the timeline match up, but I don't know. Apocalypse. Not a very scary guy. He doesn't really, like, he's pathetic looking, as I said in the previous video. He looks like a Power Rangers villain. And even the way he kills people is very quiet and unobtrusive. It's just like silent killing. And you're like, okay, you're not really that scary. And even the whole giant apocalypse, which could have been scary, is all in the mind world of Xavier and him. It's not even real. He's not even really giant. I don't know, he's a bit of a pathetic villain. Nothing to do with Oscar Isaac's performance, of course, but just the way they made him look wasn't really that great. Okay, so my final thoughts. There was some spectacular acting. Really brilliant. The CGI was fantastic. The way they used their powers was brilliant. Jean Grey's Phoenix was incredible. They did that so beautifully. They really made a lot of the characters very believable. But there wasn't really much else. The villain wasn't really that scary. The whole storyline was let's get the villain, and not really much else. No real character development, and a lot of, timeline mishaps, a lot of characters being too young. So, would I watch this film again? I don't know, I'm not really sure. It was okay. There were a lot of good things in it, but there was also a lot of bad things in it. And the story, which is really the main thing you watch a film for, wasn't fantastic. There are definitely better X-Men stories, and I just felt like this wasn't one of the best. So, I don't think that I would watch it again. I'm glad that I've seen it, and I wouldn't recommend someone to not see it. But yeah, it was just alright as opposed to brilliant. So if you've any movies you would like me to review, please leave them in the comments below and I shall take a look at them and see if I could do a review of them for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to be notified whenever I make a new one, and I shall see you very soon. Bye guys!